I'm Lily Moayeri, one of Festival Advisors contributors. I'm here with Darren Traub, attorney extraordinaire. Welcome, Darren.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Very happy to have you. I have to say, after speaking to you, I really wish I'd gone to law school like my parents so desperately wanted me to. Because of how you approach the profession, it's so creative and one of the more dynamic and all-encompassing ways of being involved with music. You've been the attorney for many music brands, festivals, artists, and now you're at the WWE. Could you tell us about the particular intersection of music, fashion, gaming, esport, technology, and now wrestling that you occupy?
Yeah, sure. It's a giant intersection, isn't it, when you put it that way? All right, so I've been doing this for 21 years, and I started off. I knew I wanted to go to law school to be an entertainment attorney, and when I graduated, which was back in 2000. I wanted to do something a little bit different. I didn't want to be a traditional music attorney and either work for a record label or strictly for artists. I loved the music. I loved technology. I loved computers. I loved video games. And so I kind of wanted to do something, as I called it at the beginning, kind of the intersection of technology and entertainment. And that, of course, has been changing over time. So when I graduated law school, it was sort of right when Napster, was kind of the height and streaming. So I was kind of doing a lot of the edge of that and helping musicians and record labels, depending on who would hire me first, right? Start learning about 360 contracts. And the more I started, the more I realized that when you are working with talent, there's a lot more than just the one dimension, right? So if you're a record label and you're working with talent, there's a lot more to that person than just being an artist, right? They've got a personality, they've got branding and marketing skills. And then that kind of just kept rolling. So then it was sort of like, okay, well, how can we brand and market these talents? What is kind of new and unique? And then that kind of evolved so that as I was doing more music festivals back, over a year ago when those were a thing, they're definitely coming back, for those who are interested. But I started working with, I've worked with over 55 different international music festivals and some of the largest, mostly in EDM and hip hop. And when you talk to those artists, they're very multicultural and they're very multi-talented, right? So if you're talking to a DJ, while they may be a phenomenal EDM artist on stage, they're likely also into sneaker culture and fashion. They're most likely into video games, which then sort of now turn into, esports, but is still kind of gaming. Streaming became a big thing. And so as I was hanging out backstage and talking to, these different artists, you would learn different things. And then it was sort of like, oh, I wonder what we can do to sort of take your music and put it into video games, and not just as a soundtrack, but how can we feature you? How can we utilize artists in streaming? How can we utilize gaming and music? And then, the more you talk to people, the more kind of creative juices, and those kind of then led to the big moment, which was the big Marshmello Fortnite concert back in 2019 or 20. Yeah, got to remember like when that one first started. Right. And then that kind of became this kind of big new idea of, hey, here's how we can actually feature an artist authentically in gaming, feature the music in there, cross over two different demographics that should already be, crossed over. And the interesting thing is everyone's like, oh, music and gaming go together. And while that's true, there is a fine line you have to weave, because when you're gaming, you really get in the zone. And so the music can't distract you. It has to add to what you're doing. And at the same time, if you're really into music, right, you're not going to pause that to dive deep into a game. So it's kind of this like, hey, how do we bring music and gaming together in a new way that's not just a soundtrack, but that doesn't disrupt either medium? And so, the Fortnite concert was kind of the first big of its genre. It's now, now it's kind of commonplace, but years ago it wasn't. It was this new metaverse concert. And then, of course, when the pandemic hit, I started unfortunately shuttering a lot of these live events and and festivals, and the artists kind of went silent. But after 2 weeks of everyone just kind of jumping on and live streaming, it was like, okay, what can we do that's unique? What can we do to keep the music going? If you're a festival, how do we still reach your fans and let everyone know, like, we're all in this together? Video games and esports were taking off, but they were also kind of very just, everyone's staying at home playing. How can we make this a unique conversation that adds something to everyone, lets the fans know that like the artists still care, that the festival is still out there, how to reach the consumer, but not pander, right? It's not, let me just slap a label on it and do it. So, the first big one, of course, was Travis on Fortnite. That was, the big April 2020. That was, 47 million different eyeballs, over a 3-day period. It's mind blowing. And it showed the fact that not only is gaming real and it's a new way to consume medium, but it is also a way that artists authentically engage because artists play games. And then that became this whole thing last year of, okay, I'm an artist. What can I do in video games that hasn't been done before? And again, I'll use the term authentic a lot, but it's because when you're talking to, when you're talking to a music fan, it's the same thing like when you're talking about a video game. The BS meter is off the charts. It's the highest BS meter of any audience I've ever seen. And the amazing thing is they're very engaging. They welcome new ideas. They welcome new thought patterns. They certainly welcome being open to trying out a new piece of music or other entertainment, as long as you're not pandering to them, right? So it's not, hey, look, you must play video games, so you're going to love this. No, it's got to be I took the time to understand your video game, and I'm giving something that's adding to that experience. And so, Travis's concert did that. Then when other artists like, oh, how can I do that as well? It's like, okay, well, there's only going to be one huge Fortnite concert when Battle Royale shutters and everyone goes watches it. Travis is a true unique icon, right? So you already started with a bar that was overly high. And so whenever anyone else came, it was like, okay, you don't want to do that because you'll be compared to that and you'll probably fall short. So let's find something that is new and unique to you. So when I did like the Little Nas X concert, it was, okay, we probably can't do it on Fortnite, nor should we. Let's find a new platform. And Roblox was out there, and it made more sense for Nas's demographic. So what I was bringing to the table was this unique perspective of understanding video games, the platforms, the different demographics that go into it, and at the same time, the music world and the demographics and how to speak this. So I'm the one that kind of helped interweave and combine these two, and I would explain the gaming world to to music and music world to gaming, and kind of find the right match of both platform and artists. And once you even get down to that, like what music is going to work, how do you authentically communicate something, and how do you give something back to the end user on both the artist and the gaming that they both probably don't even know that they want yet until they saw it. So that was my life for the last probably 5 years, was kind of the intersection of music and gaming.
And it's interesting because, last year, all the things you've been working towards, not knowing there's a pandemic coming, completely became something that everybody needed and wanted. And you already had so much experience with it. I didn't realize that you were involved with that marshmallow thing, because that was way before all this stuff.
Yeah, that was, and that was this kind of anomaly. It was sort of like, no one's going to pay attention. Well, let's just do something kind of unique and show more of, let's show what Fortnite can be, right? It was more than just a game. It can be a social platform in a unique way to showcase brands and artists. In that one case, it was something that made sense for Marshmallow because he was kind of this unique gamer and just wanted to do something new and unique, other than just spinning his marshmallow head. And it took off, I think, more than anyone thought it would. I believe at the time it was 12 million viewers. And so it was kind of something everyone had in their back pocket. The Travis concert was already being worked on long before the pandemic. It just happens to be at the beginning of the pandemic, and it happened to be right when everyone was sort of tired of the pandemic hit, and everyone pulled out their cameras and was doing live streams from home. And while that was fun for the first 2 weeks, it quickly became boring and stayed. And so it was like, okay, let's use this time to showcase both some artist talent and, again, some other different personalities of the artists that you may not know as a fan. And at the same time, let's showcase technology and what we could be doing. So like there's a concert that is now coming out in a few weeks that I helped work on, Madison Beer. It'll be a TikTok avatar concert, right? But that was something that for 3 or 4 years, I mean, the technology obviously has increased, but avatar concerts have been here since 2016. Frankly, no one cared, right? I mean, it was sort of like, all right, we could do this really neat thing. It was, check out the great technology. It was a shtick, if you will, right? It was sort of like, hey, artists, you want to do something, that it's different, but it's not really going to add anything. Well, now that the um, now that the narrative has changed and it's, hey, what can I do now that is not live? Well, here's an easy one. You can be an avatar. And by the way, consumers are devouring avatars, right? D to A, or direct to avatar, is now this new this new business consumption for brands. Because, as I always say, if you're Louis Vuitton, a 15-year-old boy or girl, it probably can't afford a $5,000 purse, right? Or if they can, they're very, very few of them. But they can all afford a dollar or $2 little avatar version of a Louis Vuitton something. And if you buy that in Fortnite, and you can flex out the fact that you got this Louis drop for $2 because you can afford it, it's the same feeling as a 25 or 30-year-old who actually got the real LV piece. And what's really cool then is for that player who was able to get an affordable but still yet kind of high-end drop piece, right? They still get this, they get the flex out, they get to feel like, look, I got this. They get the same feeling, but more importantly, they've now built an affinity for the brand. And so now their goal is, when I do turn 25 and I do have my first 5,000, I want to buy the real piece. And so for brands, it's a way to connect to an audience and kind of bring them through. For players of a certain age that probably can't yet afford the real piece, it's the same way then to still be involved in aspiring brands. And so you've got Louis Vuitton, you've got Gucci, you've got even streetwear things like Off-White that is on that level. It's a way now for consumers to engage with brands that are aspirational to them, and a means that still matters to them. So these D to A sales are working both ways, in terms of, now I can get sponsors to come into my metaverse concerts. Now I can go find ways to engage with my consumer and do skin drops and t-shirt drops within the digital world. And you know what? It takes just one, right? It's a few pieces of code, but if you can sell that one 3 million times for 50 cents or $1, that's a lot. You're making a lot more than you ever were on concert merchandise that you're going to have to throw away, when you were done with, or it didn't sell out. So it is a new way that everyone is thinking about within these kind of metaverse concerts.
Yeah, and you don't have like production costs or like leftover, like you said, you wouldn't have to throw it away. One of the things that you mentioned while we were talking, which I thought was a really great analogy, is you were comparing moving into the video game space like skateboarding in the early 90s or 90s, which I was like, oh, I know exactly what you mean when you related it back to something that was part of my growing up. I'm like, I know what you mean, because the true skaters, which would be the true gamers in this case, would just be like, don't try and come and like copy clothes and then try and do some knockoff version of this brand that's been supporting skateboarding from day one. And there was a lot of sensitivity around that, and like, kind of boycotting of brands that they felt were just cashing in on a trend or a culture that was so important to the skaters. And once you gave me that analogy, I was like, it's so on point. It's completely true. And that's also why I feel that you're essential, because you're the one that can translate that and
Yes.
keep authenticity.
Yeah, when I use the term gaming, I always have to back it up for you. But I say, when I use the term gaming, it really as a culture movement. It's not just the video game, or even someone that plays games. Now, most people do, right? Whether it's Candy Crush on your iPhone, or you're a true League of Legends or Warzone player on a console. But when I talk about gaming, it's a cultural movement of music. So it's mostly hip hop and EDM. But depending on where you are, it could be K-pop, it could be some version of pop. Or even heavy metal, but mostly it's EDM and hip hop. It is a certain cultural fashion movement, so it's mostly like kind of sneakerheads and streetwear. But for parents who are listening, it is a very high end level. The prices will astound a lot of people for the certain drops that you can get. It is a way to consume media, right? So it's streaming on Twitch, or TikTok, or Snapchat, or Triller, or Instagram Reels, right? Depending on whatever your YouTube subscriptions. And then of course it's all based around this kind of gaming culture. And so, when I talk to brands or artists or record labels, it's the same thing as, you and I were talking about it. It's, if you were in the 90s and you were trying to connect with the youth culture at the time, you had to understand skateboarding. You didn't need to go sponsor a skateboard team. You didn't even need to go sponsor, the X Games, but you needed to understand the mentality around the skate culture, because that kind of permeated. It later became a little bit more hip hop, and then that's kind of evolved into this larger gaming culture. But it's the same way now, that if you are trying to reach, what I'll call Gen Z and younger millennials within this kind of gaming idea, you need to understand streaming. You need to understand how they devour their media. You need to understand what's important to them. It's very different than than a Gen X, or even kind of an older millennial. And so, and again, as we kind of said, it's not pandering. You can't just go slap a gaming label on something. It needs to add to the experience. It needs to add to the conversation. It needs to be done on a level that says, look, I'm not pandering. I actually understand you. That's why I've chosen this thing. And there's some really unique things that are being done, that have been done, that are currently being done. I know it's coming out in 6 months, and it's even in a year from now, there's some stuff that is going to be mind blowing. So yeah, I love watching, kind of what's happening.
Yeah. So how do you feel the digital aspect of connecting to audiences is going to continue as we're moving into a post-pandemic? I mean, we're still in the pandemic, but we're also kind of transitioning into having live shows and festivals coming back and things like that. And now with the vaccine being around. So how do you feel this will translate? Because every artist I've spoken to in the last year tells me they never want to give up the digital aspect or the virtual aspect or the live stream aspect of what they do once they hit a real stage.
Yeah, so two things, right? This does not take the place of live, right? No one went on a video game, watched a concert, was like, oh, thank God I wasn't at the festival. This is so much easier, right? This is not taking the place of it. At the same time, artists are able to engage with a huge audience that either one may not be able to afford or travel to, or are in the age demographic of able to attend, a concert or festival. So it reaches a new audience. And number two, you can try things out, right? So, we were kind of joking earlier, but if you make a crappy concert t-shirt and you've printed 100,000 of them and it doesn't sell, like you learn your lesson a little late. If you make a really crappy, piece of digital merch and doesn't sell, that's fine. Wipe the code and try again. And so when I've been talking to artists about utilizing, the metaverse and gaming, the first thing is, this is not a substitute for what you really are, which as at your core is concerts and festivals. But for right now, there are none of these. So here's our medium. The idea is, okay, when live returns, how do I plug this in? Is going to play on Fortnite or Roblox, as an album drop, going to be as unique as showing up on SNL or, the Jimmy Fallon show is just kind of part of that tour? Is it that I can kick off my live events by a preview in the metaverse and either drop like surprise tickets, put Easter eggs using digital skins then to sort of connect with your audience, and it's going to be different for every artist. But the reality is, right, this is going to be a plug-in as part of the artist's repertoire. It's just a way to connect still with the audience, and frankly then bring them to the festivals, bring them to the events, right? So it's like, hey, if you're going to come to Coachella, right, you're not skipping Coachella because you saw me in Roblox, but instead you might get more excited about my Coachella experience because you did see me in Roblox. And you know what? It was probably more of a unique experience for you. You may even felt it was more intimate because here I am, right on your screen in your living room as an avatar. And you know what? You and I both like Roblox, so that makes us, extra connected. And there's new ways in for digital to connect people when live does. So, there's the one-on-one cameos or looped sort of things. There's those concerts is like, hey, come into my living room, watch me play a song or two. If you want to, do the rest of it, catch me at, EDC or Ultra or Rolling Loud or, whatever your genre is. So this will be part of the conversation, but it will certainly not be the conversation, right? It's just going to add to it. It's probably the opening page to hopefully a larger story.
Since I spoke to you, I have repeated the stuff that I learned from our interview to so many people, which of course makes me sound super smart. I give you credit though, and I'm like, I learned this in an interview with this attorney. And one of the things that I felt you said that I'm like, I personally feel this, so was watching a virtual live stream of an artist I like. And while I was watching it, I was enjoying it so much because I'd missed seeing them for so long. It was a great live stream, really well done, really like representative of who they are as an artist. But I was like, oh, I can't wait to go see him play again. That's how I felt. It's what you said. It wasn't making me not want to see them. It was just keeping my hype up in a way for them.
And that's really what if you look at the pandemic as a pause in life, right? It was simply just a way then for artists to go, I'm here with you. You and I are in this together, because look at me, I'm stuck at home. I can't go on the road either. But one, I want to connect with you, my fan. Two, I want to give you something to kind of get through this. But three, like I still, in the end, it's still a business. Like I want you to still, miss me, get ready to go out. And when my live returns, because when live returns, everyone's going to jump, right? You're going to have more choices than you ever have, because, whenever that go button is, no one's going, oh, well, my festival's in March. No, mine's in April. Mine's in May. Everyone's like, nope, I've been out of this game for 2 years, and, can't wait to sell tickets. And so you're going to be inundated with events. And of course, these artists and festivals want you to, buy theirs first and remember them until kind of the spread out comes again. And people will, we, WWE WrestleMania was announced. When we go, we went on sale not even a week and a half ago for an event in 2 weeks. And normally, right, our WrestleMania tickets go on sale 3 months, 4 months early. This was literally, we have a 3-week window just because of the way it worked out. And we were very lucky to be one of the first big live to return for WrestleMania. But, we sold, almost 80% of our tickets within a matter of days. And that just shows you that live audiences want to return. If you can give them a safe environment, and show them that, look, you're not rushing this. We're not just trying to take your money. Like we, at WW, we've been talking for months about how to safely return. And we went through different options before we finally landed on, the one that made the most sense for safely reopening in an environment that also made sense to reopen. So at the same time, you don't want to be like, oh, come to my giant spectacular when there's like 8 people and, a teeny stage. If people are going to spend their hard-earned money and come to you, you still want to make them feel like there was the environment that they're missing. Right. And so, but live is ready to return. It will, look, we're coming in, as one of the first, and there's a whole stream. And so, I believe most lives will return in some way, shape, or form by the end of the year. And then probably what we used to go back to sometime in 2022.
Yeah. So speaking of WWE, tell us what you're doing over there, because we've lost you to the wrestle world.
No, yeah, I am.
How does it connect back to all the stuff you've been doing with musicians and artists and all the other stuff that we know you for? I have to say, like, if I were just a viewer of this interview, at no point would I think you were an attorney.
That's it's funny. It is my biggest compliment ever when someone tells me, "Oh, you don't look like or act like an attorney." And my favorite, I think I told you this during our interview. My favorite story of all time is, right. So Ultra Music Festival was one of my clients. I used to live on site during the festival week, so I'd move on, into a trailer like on a Tuesday, and the festival, would go through Sunday, and I would live back there, and I had to be on site at usually 6 a.m. and I would get off probably at 1 or 2 in the morning. So it was very little sleep, a lot of coffee and Red Bull to get through that week. And, and one morning it was like 6:30 and I went to the Starbucks next door. And, the barista was like, oh, are you at the festival? And I said, yeah. She goes, oh, you must be a DJ. And I said, no, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever said. I'm a lawyer. And she goes, oh, you don't look like a lawyer. And I said, I don't. What do I look like? She said, you look like one of the DJs. And I kid you not. And I said, are you going to the festival? And she said, no, I can't. It's my dream, but I can't afford tickets. And I said, well, you literally like made my year, but you definitely made my week. So I pulled out 2 VIP tickets that I have in my backpack. I said, here you go. These are for you and a friend. I hope I can make you smile as much as you just made me. So hearing that I don't look or act like an attorney, greatest compliment someone can give me. But no, so I joined WWE at the end of January. I'm the Senior Vice President, Business Affairs, which is a legal job, but of entertainment and talent. So I head up all the legal for our television shows, our film studios, our record label, our live events, our special events, and then all of our talent roster, both in terms of signing talent to WWE, but more importantly, in utilizing our talent outside of the ring. So I do all of our video game work, all of our streaming work, sponsorships, finding unique ways for our talent to be known as more than just the in the ring superstars that they are. And then of course, I also work with celebrities that are trying to come into WWE and finding new ways to engage outside talent to make the conversation interesting. So at WrestleMania, for example, we'll have some unique celebrity guests that will surprise people, artists and musicians. And I went there because, I had this really cool practice, right? And it was, as I told you, it was truly like music, video games, streetwear and street culture, licensing and sponsorships, and then of course technology and kind of in this wrap thing. And there were very few brands in the world that you can find a way to utilize all that. And so, I'd always had these really cool opportunities come to me like, oh, come work at this record label, come work at this movie studio, come work at, this video game. But to do that, it was very siloed and I would have to give up something that I loved. And it's like, I told everyone, it's like, oh, what's your favorite? I'm like, it all is, right? Like I created a dream job and I had this amazing network across, across all of those things. So within record labels, within artists, within, within agents, within gaming. And I don't want to give any of that up. And there were very few brands that you could say, this encompasses it. And WWE happens to be one of them, right? Their video games are incredible, from the Take-Two game to their mobile games to what we'll be doing soon in the metaverse. Right, their live events and special events. WrestleMania is up there with, the Super Bowl and the special and the Summer Olympics, and what we do with the Special Olympics in terms of working in other people's live events is unbelievable. The talent and the musicians that come into it, right? So there was all of that, and of course, and it runs culture. And the coolest thing is, this is a brand that I grew up with. So I'll be 47 next month, and in the 80s, when I was growing up, like, WWE was, the shits, and, and in the 90s with the Attitude Era, and it's constantly adapting and remaining relevant, and all the new technology that's out there, right, WWE adapts to. And so even in the pandemic, what they did with the Thunderdome of bringing audiences into the Thunderdome was incredible. And so when the opportunity to go join them and head up entertainment and talent, did that, that's a once in a lifetime opportunity to bring all your skills all day, every day. And so, I show up at work, and then it's everything, it is, it's special events. So I help open WrestleMania. It's our talent. It's how do we use video games? How do we use NFTs now? It's everything that I've ever loved, 24/7. And frankly, right, on overload. So it's everything that I ever loved 100 times, right? Because of the WWE being, this giant spectacular that it is. So yeah, it was a dream job. And it took very little for me to just, jump at it.
Yeah. Because when I realized you moved there, I'm like, wait, what happened? and then after speaking to you, I'm like, actually, I hate to say it's the right place for him, because, I want you to be my attorney for whatever.
It is, because the thing, like I helped, it's like my very first big thing was helping to reopen WrestleMania and bring live back and show the world, this is how you can safely open an arena style show, and do this. Here's how we can utilize talent that is similar to artists you know, in new unique ways in the metaverse, in gaming, in streaming, you know, in culture. Here's how we can bring sneakerheads into a conversation. So it's sort of like, if you can watch what I'm doing at WWE, you can do this in your own festival, in your own label, you know, and your own artist. And what's great is all of my networks across video games and music, et cetera, you know, immediately was like, oh, you know, here are great ways we can all now work together. So it's not like, oh, I went to WWE and had to give up, you know, what I was doing. It was great. Let's actually keep this conversation going in something even more fun. So, and the next year to 18 months, there'll be some really amazing things that our talent's going to be doing.
So for a much more in-depth dive into Darren's career and numerous activities, please check out our full-length interview right here on Festival Advisor. Who knows, it might want to make you become a lawyer, might want to get into the legal profession after this. Darren, thank you again for joining us. I know you have a
Thank you.
schedule. Really appreciate your time and giving us so much of it, both for the print part and for this video part. And yeah, I can't wait for WrestleMania. I can't believe I'm actually saying that. You got me excited about WrestleMania. But I genuinely can't wait to see what you've done with it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.